as is listed on the goldenrod sheet. Each speaker is provided 3 minutes to speak. I'll take that, Steve. Provided 3 minutes to speak. Dr. Glass will be our timekeeper. He'll let you know when there's about 30 seconds left. We ask our audience to please make sure to be respectful of that 3-minute time frame. We also ask our audience to keep their comments, to be respectful in their comments. And I'll just leave it at that. That said, Mr. Lyons.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Lyons. I'm coming up and celebrating my 20th year here at the International Academy as a physics teacher. I just wanted to say tonight, thank you to the entire steering committee for opening up these meetings and for holding them at times when the staff can attend. It's really, I think transparency is wonderful, and I think it's going to be great for the staff and our community to be able to hear from the steering committee. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I just have one request, that maybe in the future these meetings could be shared with the staff so that we can plan in advance and attend. I happen to be in the building today, so it was easy. But it'd be nice in the future if we got some advance notice. I know there's quite a few people that would have liked to have attended tonight. So thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Subsequent meetings for the Joint Steering Committee will be posted on our website, so should be able to take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Steve Esrich.
As I'm walking up, I'm going to apologize. I thought I was going to have 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to.
Yep, just like in Troy.
Have Bob leave. 5 years ago, when I was convinced under what I believe were false pretenses to join the IA's sister school project in China, the IA's principal assured me that it had the full support of the Joint Steering Committee and the Bloomfield Hills School District. Since then, I've learned that the principal may have never even disclosed that she was married to the IA's new business partner. Michigan's revised school code, a copy of which I have here, seems to recognize this as a direct conflict of interest, even if Bloomfield's lawyer does not. I also learned that the Joint Steering Committee has been operating illegally since its inception, that it lacked a legal quorum over 80% of the time, likely invalidating its full support of the QIA. Some members even stated that they didn't know it was a governing body. Even more troublesome, for its full support of the QIA, Joint Steering Committee members were promised annual free quality assurance trips to China led by the IA's principal. And the IA would be paid $800 for every IA diploma issued to QIA students. That's in writing. Who could see a conflict there? Now I'm going to have to skip over a lot of stuff that has been presented to the Bloomfield board, but I would strenuously ask this board to gather that information from Bloomfield's task force so that everybody can see it. Have you fully considered the risk of partnering with potentially unprincipled men? How will you even know when laws are being broken overseas? When your agents might be racially discriminating, bribing, extorting, or endangering students. Your quality assurance team never even noticed licensing issues, apparent frauds, numerous contract breaches, a teacher strike, blatant racial discrimination, hazardous pollution, or that learning was progressing at about half the pace of learning at the IA. Have you considered the potential impact on IA students' learning of increased class sizes and exchange students with serious language challenges? But the most basic question is still the most imperative. Why? Why would you risk the IA's reputation on a brand new, untested school in a place where you can't provide real oversight? The whole argument that the IA needs to coordinate its curriculum with a sister school is complete nonsense. It's a false justification for transparent profiteering. The IB was actually established specifically to ensure that children of diplomats serving in foreign countries could learn the same curriculum in any IB school worldwide. Any uncommon programs at the IA could easily be replicated in any potential IB sister school. Say one with a 10-year record of legal and ethical operations and proven IB test scores. There's simply no rationale to justify the risk of partnering with an unproven school, let alone allowing questionable private interest to profit from the use of IA's public resources. And does this board accept any responsibility for all the people who've already been injured by the actions of your authorized agents? Oh, it's okay.
Noxious alarm.
No, I trust you. Thank you. I would like to submit this. This is Michigan's revised school code, and I think it directly applies.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Nancy Costello?
Hi, good evening. My name is Nancy Costello. I'm the director of the Michigan State University First Amendment Law Clinic. And some of you know me. I've been retained by a number of community members to look into the open meetings violations and also FOIA issues dealing with IA and the Joint Steering Committee. And thank you very much, first of all, for holding open meetings, agreeing to hold open meetings in the future, and to look very seriously at your governance issues. What I wanted to talk about tonight briefly was, I know that the Joint Steering Committee and IA is looking at what the governance in the future will look like for IA. I have been talking with Attorney Bob Lusk a number of times, and I've passed information on to him, but I also wanted to do this formally to you tonight. I understand that there may be a suggestion of having the Joint Steering Committee, instead of 13 members, shrink it down to about 5 to 7 members, and have it be superintendents representing a number of the 13 school districts that are in the II consortium. And in discussions with my clients, shrinking the number is not such a bad idea, right? Because then you'll have a better ability to get at least a quorum at these meetings, because that was an issue before, because you need at least 6 or 7, I guess it would be 7, when you had 13 members. But who sits on the committee, I think, was a real concern of my clients. Having just superintendents from the school districts seems problematic, and for this reason. What we would suggest is having elected school board members designated from the individual districts. Of the 13 districts, 5 to 7 of those districts have a school board member from that individual district sit on the Joint Steering Committee as voting members, and perhaps superintendents as ex officio members. If not exactly like that, then at least the majority of the board would be elected school board members from the other districts. And the reason for this is because you're going to have a better chance of feeling like, if you're an elected board member, you're not dependent on employment through the school district, right? You're not dependent on perhaps going for a job or criticizing a colleague within the whole school system here in Oakland County, which can be uncomfortable for superintendents. Less so, I think, for elected school board members, because they don't come with the same bias, they don't have the same skin in the game in terms of employment, that they'd have to worry about what if they have to air criticisms of IA or suggestions of doing something different, that they won't receive any kind of repercussions for that in terms of employment. So we would hope that you would consider this. We think that it would be a more productive way in terms of governing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. Amelia Scott.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the fact that all of you have turned out here for this important meeting. And I appreciate your attention to the issues that have been raised about governance of the International Academy. I want to also address the idea of the future structure. And I would like to add to what Professor Costello has said. I think it would be ideal to have an alumni representative or two on the Joint Steering Committee. I think this person could be elected and across the IA alumni pool. I've seen this system of election work really well with private university trustees, and I think that IA alumni know the school better than any of you can, and better than anyone else, really. And we have seen so much passion and engagement, people coming back from university to try and address issues here. And so I think it's there's a lot of promise there, and I hope you will consider that idea. And then I also have a very short written statement here for the record where I raise some questions, and I have a small packet of documents for those of you who I have not already seen at your own school board meetings. And some of the questions I think should be considered are, like, we have this document now that Mike Cox, the attorney representing Lynn Gibson, has shared with Bloomfield Hills, and it's been published in the Detroit News. And a statement in there is directly contradicted by a statement on a letter signed by Lynn Gibson on February 10th of 2015. The Cox letter says that Bert Oakma had no ownership interest in China IA LLC, which ran the Qingdao Oakma International Academy. And the letter clearly states that China IA LLC is owned and operated by Lambert S. Oakma and an investor, Michael Yu. So my question is, how do we reconcile that conflict? How does she reconcile that conflict? And I also, a follow-up question on that is, is the IA hiring its own attorney? I heard a rumor that perhaps the IA is hiring its own attorney, separate from an attorney at Bloomfield Hills. Okay, and so my question is that true? And if so, where is that money coming from? Bloomfield Hills has made a statement, the president of the school board has made a statement that there are no future other partner school relationships between the IA and other schools, yet we have this document here that Rob's staff has acknowledged is a true document. It's another agreement with a school in Chongqing. And finally, we've got these. We have made a FOIA request to each of your districts, and we anticipated that we would get most response from Bloomfield Hills, and we have this document here showing us all of the files that they have relating to things like Chongqing, like Tumu, this company, and we would have to pay many thousands of dollars to get these documents. I would suggest that it's a good idea for you as the Joint Steering Committee that's charged now under the current consortium agreement with overseeing the IA, that you should get these documents and see really what is going on with these schools, and it seems to be ongoing. And we also have questions about, of course, the IA Foundation. So thank you so much for looking into these issues.
Should know that any documents that the group receives, the other members of the Joint Steering Committee may receive as well. So that's Stephanie Krieger? Krieger, I'm sorry. Apologize.
Good evening. I'll just echo the comments that were already made this evening and thanking you for opening the Joint Steering Committee. I'm not an IA parent. I am actually I'm in a unique position because I have a student who's new to West Bloomfield District, as well as a student in the Bloomfield Hills School District. And it's been a rather challenging journey for community members to be able to come before you. One of the things that I wanted to request is that, in addition to you seeking elected school board members, that you also make attempts to be a little bit more transparent and take the initiative, being proactive to invite the community to come to the meetings. I've been less than pleased, honestly, with my experiences in Bloomfield Hills in reference to transparency and us really taking efforts to make sure that not only our parents invited, but I heard someone mention employees as well, but also to open the invitation to students. Because at the end of the day, the majority of us are here because the center of the concern is for our students, right? There have been several comments that have been made over a period of years that reference really that there are specific individuals, parents, who are creating the problem. And I think that if that is your thinking, and if that was communicated to you, I want to tell you that that is not correct. If you speak with the students in your respective communities, they would tell you what the culture has been like, what they've been experiencing. I have personally had students tell me about their concerns at the International Academy, and there's no way that a decent human being could hear their stories and trauma that they feel that they've experienced and not have some sort of regard to follow up. If you have been told that there is only one parent who is leading this effort, that would also be incorrect. To know that although people cannot attend the meetings, there are several people who are following up. There are several people who are willing to engage and mobilize if necessary. I would also ask that you include a current student, perhaps a representative from each campus. One of the things that I witnessed, I went to my first school board meeting in West Bloomfield, and I was pretty impressed to see that they actually had students who were coming and reporting to them in that process. And while that was only my first meeting, I can't say how effective that's been. It was impressive to me that you will have a district that would think highly enough of students to be able to come and speak on their own behalf about what's happening in the district. So I think that would be very beneficial if you would do that. And honestly, let's seek out individuals who are going to be honest. I know from the business perspective, it is difficult to acknowledge that you have areas for improvement. I understand that. I have a background where I try to help, executive management deal with those types of issues. But I want to impress upon you that when you begin to do that, that's when you gain the trust of the community, right? They're going to rally behind you and other things that you need. And when you do that, it also allows for personal development for those employees that you have who might not be doing everything to satisfaction, right? And then it's also going to grow your organization. So I would hope that you would take everything in consideration tonight, really dig deep into the documentation that you've received. I think you'll see some things in there that you may not have had communicated to you prior to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schreier. Any other questions? Seeing none at this time. We'll move on to consider a resolution concerning the International Academy Consortium Agreement, as Ms. Costello has already outlined. There is a group, there is an interest in having a group of the steering committee come together and work to make recommendations to the larger joint steering committee as it relates to how this group functions. With that in mind, it would be appropriate to consider a resolution. Do I have a motion?
A motion to consider resolution.
Superintendent Fitzpatrick, do I have a support?
Support.
Okay. Jerry Hill supports. Dr. Hill, thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick, can you read the resolution at this time?
I will. Resolution. Whereas the International Academy has received questions and comments concerning the conduct of its business in conformity with certain laws and constitutional provisions, it is resolved the International Academy Joint Steering Committee, JSC, hereby appoints a subcommittee consisting of 3 superintendents of constituent school districts in which International Academy campuses are located, Bloomfield Hills, Troy, and Huron Valley, or their designees, and 3 superintendents from other constituent school districts or their designees. It is further resolved, this subgroup will study the International Academy Consortium Agreement with the assistance of legal counsel and recommended such amendments to the consortium agreement as may be necessary to address questions and comments concerning compliance with certain laws and constitutional provisions. It is further resolved, this subgroup will endeavor, if practicable, to present its recommendations at the next meeting of the Joint Steering Committee, currently scheduled for June the 3rd in Royal Oak Schools, and, upon approval by the JSC, submit an amended consortium agreement to its constituent school districts for review and approval by their boards of education.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
I asked for support too soon. Do I have support for the resolution? Oh, thank you, Dr. Hill. All right. Any questions on the proposed resolution?
there's 3 superintendents selected for designee.
Do I have volunteers?
Some of them aren't here tonight?
Some of them aren't here, that's correct, yeah.
So I'm wondering, are we going to do it tonight, or are we going to do it after this resolution?
I think we'll do it
passes?
after the resolution. We'll see who's interested in participating, whose time allows them to participate. But knowing that we've got the 3 constituent districts to start that process, and we will we'll seek 3 volunteers from 3 additional districts that are interested in participating. Any other questions?
I just want to note that I think some of the public comments and the suggestions that were given as to the ultimate composition of the JSC will be very helpful in this smaller committee's work and can be considered within that framework and context. So I appreciate the comments and think they'll be very helpful.
I'd like to say also, I think that the time frame I think is going to work well, as knowing that our next meeting is June 3rd, should give us ample time to get this work accomplished. And not only get the work accomplished, but make sure we're doing the best possible work with respect to the needs of the International Academy. Okay.
I guess one question I would have is, when we're typically doing something like this in our home district, you would have like a first reading before you would make a decision. Is that a safe assumption that when this comes back in June, that a decision would not be likely, but it would be more to present those findings and have discussion around those findings? Is that a correct assumption in everyone else's thinking?
It would be for me.
Yeah.
Pretty common practice in our district as well.
That makes sense. That certainly makes sense. We bring back as complete a draft as we can. We get a first reading. We get some input. It does provide the opportunity for the community to hear that first reading as well, and then we can come back. We can listen to additional suggestions and areas possibly that we've missed, and we can take it from there and making any necessary adjustments. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution as written, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. Okay, with that said, there are no more public comment. Just want to make sure we get everybody for the record. Okay, good. That being said, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Support?
Second.
All right. Moved by Dr. Glass, supported by Mr. Wilson. And that said, just a reminder, the next, as was just read, the next Joint Steering Committee meeting will be June 3rd, 6 o'clock in Royal Oak. And Mary Beth, where?
Our board offices are located at 800 Devillen Road, which is south of 13 Mile east of Rochester Road in Royal Oak. It's also a joint building with Churchill Alternative Education.
Okay.
So when you look it up on a map, it may also be called Churchill.
Thank you. And per some of the comments that we heard tonight, we will ask our Joint Steering Committee representatives to please make sure that they publish that document within their individual districts so that the public is fully aware of our next meeting. Okay. That said, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Good job, Rich.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for coming. Get Mary Beth out of here. Record times. Time for coffee.
Got 20 minutes to spare.
Guess who gets to chair the meeting, Jim? It's all yours. They will.